Hey, welcome back to the Bullpen Sessions podcast. My name is Andy Neary, and this is episode 309. Today, I have Rocio Luna joining me on the podcast. I'm excited to have her join to talk about what life is like being a female producer in the commercial insurance space. She is a former work comp claims manager turned producer. And she finds herself in a male-dominated industry, targeting a male-dominated industry, which is the construction industry. So I wanted to bring her on just to have a conversation about how she found herself in the industry, what life was like working in a claims management role, and then that transition from behind the desk to out opening doors as a producer. That is not an easy transition for a lot of people. And then we talk about the imposter syndrome that can often come when you are a female working in a male-dominated industry as the insurance industry is. So she has a lot of great advice on how to overcome imposter syndrome, what she's done to really set herself apart in a space like construction, and how she's leveraging her past skills and work comp to create a nice niche in the commercial space. So you're a new producer, you're a veteran, you want to stand out in the market, you're looking for ways to differentiate, ways to leverage your unique gifts. This is going to be a great episode for you. So here we go. Episode 309, Rocio Luna. Hey, welcome back to Bullpen Sessions. All right, I am excited. Today, I have Rocio Luna joining me, a female commercial producer in the state of California working for Insurex. I'm excited to have this conversation, Rocio. Welcome aboard.
Thank you so much for having me, Andy, and I'm excited to explain my story.
Awesome. So here's where we're kicking it off. Whenever I interview producers, I love to know how they got into the industry, because most of us did not get in by design. And I've probably met, on one hand, people who went to college for risk management. So for the people who don't know who the heck Rocio Luna is, how the heck did you find yourself in the insurance industry?
Okay, so my story is one of those funny stories. I got into the insurance space at a really young age, right after college at age 22. And I had originally gone to Cal State Fullerton for psychology. I got my bachelor's degree, but I felt that I was still immature to go into social services because I wasn't mentally prepared for that. So I wanted to give myself at least 4 to 5 years to be, a full adult, because I didn't consider myself a full adult at 22, So I wanted to know what it felt like to have a real job. So I applied at all entry-level positions, sales, customer service, anything I could get my hands on. And the first interview that I had, it was for a claims assistant. They were looking for someone that was bilingual. They had said no skills required, entry level. We'll train you. If you pass the 90 days, we'll provide you with courses. And I was like, oh, okay, maybe this is something I could try out. So I went to the interview, and the brokerage out. It was like, this is 9 years ago, out in Orange County. They needed a bilingual person. Really, they were really desperate for one. So they're like, hey, we like you. It's really hard to come across someone that speaks English and Spanish. So if we hire you on the spot, can you start next week? And I said, yeah, I need a job. So let's do it. But I had absolutely no idea what claims meant. And I barely knew the definition of insurance. So I knew you had to carry, commercial auto, but I had no idea what workers' comp meant, any of that. So for my department, it was just workers' comp, and I had no idea what that it meant or it entailed. So it was definitely, I felt like I was drinking water out of a fire hose for the next 2 years of my life. I didn't know that I was going to be sitting at a desk looking at lawsuits, workers' comp, dealing with adjusters, insurance carriers, defense attorneys, employers that are pissed off that their premium's going up. But I stuck it out.
Well, what's interesting is you said you went to college for psychology, right?
Yes.
Little did you know that years later, as a producer, because we'll talk about your transition as a producer, psychology actually comes into play pretty well. I tell people, knowing what I know now and having been in the insurance industry for 23 years, I wish I would have had a psychology and a communication major in college based on what we do. Interesting. You found yourself. So, here you are, you take a job as a claims manager. And It's funny, ironic, you say it kind of said there weren't that many skills required. Did you hit that moment early, like a lot of us did in the industry early on, where you're like, what the heck did I just get myself into?
Yes, I was sticker shock because I had no idea, especially um being in that position. And I had no training. So what my job was to be a claims. So there was a claims manager,
Mm-hmm.
and he would basically just tell me like, okay, you need to do this. But he didn't train because he was occupied also doing the marketing, because it was a small brokerage. So he was assisting with the marketing side. And that's what I kind of learned a little bit, like have the importance of SOPs, because I was like, oh my God, like, I don't know what to do. So like having SOPs in place. But yes, I did tell myself, I'm like, what am I doing? I'm like, is this like, I even felt I talk about imposter syndrome. I had imposter syndrome for like 4 years being in that claims manager role, because I was 23 years old when I started going out in the field, and people will look at me like, oh, you're my claims rep. How old are you? You look like you're 18. But as soon as I started to speak and talk about their claims, the litigation, and then I started to see like, oh, wow, there's so much more to risk management. I mean, I didn't know what risk management meant. I was kind of getting the understanding, but there's so much more that goes behind the doors of workers' comp. It's not just here's your policy, but what goes behind closed doors when there's a claim. What is the process? Who's in the communication? It's like, then you open that up and you have adjusters, you have defense attorneys, you have clinics, you have a bunch of different people around that arena.
Yeah, you know what's interesting with that, Rocio? We coach a lot of agencies that have producers on the commercial side who came from a risk adjuster role, an underwriting role, where they're not born salespeople, but what their gift is now is because they got to see behind the scenes on the other side what goes on. That becomes their skill set in sales. Is they're a very good tactician, because in risk management, as an adjuster or an underwriter, they know exactly what buttons to be pushing in order for a client to look good to a carrier. What kind of risk management should you be doing? So I got to believe how many years did you spend in work comp claims management?
Sitting at a desk for 6 years, but even in my sales role, I still manage claims for my clients. So
that's where I was going to go. Mm-hmm. I got to believe your 6 years sitting behind a desk in claims management has definitely had a profound impact on what you do today as a producer.
Yes. And you talk about that, and it's very true, because we do know the exact answer. We just don't know how to communicate that. So I know, like, when I first started my first year, there was a lot of like, well, like get to the point. Like, there was a lot of talking and why this is important, but I wasn't communicating correctly to the insured or to the employer when I was speaking about it. So I had to know how to definitely adjust it, because when you're sitting behind a desk and you're basically processing paper, sending emails, getting back, it's completely different than going out, knocking at someone's door or calling someone out of the blue and introducing yourself as to why is it important why do they need to take your call now? Because everybody's going to tell you I'm busy. And I think that's definitely a skill that I'm still learning. But it's definitely a big mind shift from being someone behind, the desk and having people come to you for help versus going out there and finding it.
Yep. Sitting behind a desk, the work comes to you. Mm-hmm. In a production role, you got to go find the work, right? And so I talked about communication earlier, going back to the clients we work with that are, producers now, former risk adjusters, underwriters turned producers. One of their biggest risks is they love to tell you how the watch is made because they know everything about everything up behind the scenes, when your prospect and your client just wants to know the watch tells time. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what you're getting at, is because you had so much technical skill.
Oh, yes.
It's easy to over communicate to the point you completely lose a client or a prospect. Mm-hmm. So let's talk about that. So you spent 6 years in a claims management role and then went to the production role.
Yes.
What led you down that path? Because I love hearing these stories, because I tell people all the time, most people in our industry are not a born salesperson. They started out as an account manager, an account exec, a claims manager. And then one day their boss said, or somebody said, hey, you should give this production thing a roll. You can make a ton of money. How did you find yourself, former claims manager turned producer?
Yes. So I think it did start with the prior agency called ERM Insurance, the old owner. He ended up selling the agency, but his name was Duncan Prince, and he saw the tenacity in me. Because I would stay late, I would come in early, and he's like, if you put that much work into learning how to sell, because he's like, it, and he's like, I see that you want to help people. He's like, very few people, there's a misconnection because some people just want the commission, but he's like, you actually care and you go above and beyond that. So he was dropping the seeds in me. And the reason I didn't stay in claims is because the next position that I had would be working at State Fund. So in California, there's this carrier named State Fund, and they're the largest workers' comp carrier, but it's pretty much like the DMV. And pretty much they offered me a position there to be a claims manager and manage about 50 people under my supervision. But I was 27 at that time. And I was like, there's no way, people who are older than me are going to listen to me. And I still didn't, and I had definitely no skills on how to manage a team. Like, I was like, whoa. Like, all I've ever done was manage 2 people, not 50 people, especially not 50 people who are like older than me. So I was like, okay, I don't want to stay, because it's very, it's claims. I love claims, but it's definitely, my hats go off to the people that stay in claims, because you have to have so much peace in yourself, and you have to be able to switch hats. And, when there's a fire going on, a client's upset, the defense attorney's not getting paid, the clinic is mad at you, everything fires back at the insurance. So my hat goes off to the claims people.
Yeah, it's a thankless job often, right? The claims people, the people who are just managing, not making the decisions, are often the baby getting thrown out with the bathwater. They get blamed for things that are out of their control. What advice? I'm curious. So you made the transition, and there might be another claims manager or risk adjuster or an account exec listening to this episode. What advice would you give that individual, knowing the move you made and some of the things you had to learn or where you had to get better to become an effective producer? I think one you already mentioned, you've got to care. But what advice would you give to somebody who is sitting there today, maybe thinking about producing, but they haven't made that jump yet? What would your advice be to them?
I think that if anyone feels they should try something, they should try it. I think the worst thing you could do is sit 5 more years or 2 more years in the same position and then be like, oh, well, if I would have started, I could have been getting a head start. So I feel that, because I know when I was working claims, I kind of had that feeling of like, what I could do. I kind of want to do something else. I already know the program. It's just me getting connected to the decision maker and building that relationship. Well, but I could still keep, these relationships that I built over here, so I could assist them. So definitely, if you are feeling and you want to take a chance, a leap of faith, do it, but get coaching. So you mentioned earlier, Charles Specht. I use Charles Specht. So I think honestly, that has been a huge help, because if I didn't go out, reach out to someone to help me out with my coaching, and it was just me, my claims skills and no sales skills or no sales training, oh man, I'm pretty sure I would have failed drastically. So definitely get a mentor or a consultant that could help you and guide you down that way. And another change, it would be that instead of being the receiver, you now have to go out and be kind of the taker, in a sense as taking people's, because you are taking people's time. So you have to be able, but you have to make them see why it's valuable for them to give you 5 minutes of their time or less, but at least to be able to listen to you, to know why, and deliver that importance. Because at the end of the day, everybody wants a peace of mind. Everybody wants to save money, and everybody wants to know that they're covered in case a claim happens.
Yeah, I think that's a really good piece of advice there, because I have seen it with a lot of people who have gone from account management to producing. They're used to having the work come to them. And even in some cases, inbound referrals come to them. And now they find themselves in a production role where it's like, no, you've actually got to go open the door. And they struggle with that because they're used to having things come to them. I think that's a really good way to put that. I'm curious. Here's where I want to take the conversation. Now that you are in a production role, how do you leverage your past role as far as, let's call it, niching goes? I'm a big believer that, become known for one thing. Because you have a history of work comp claims, for example, as a producer, do you often find yourself focusing on work comp as one of your strategies?
Yes, that's my leading indicator. I always walk in with the EMR analysis. But you'll be surprised. A lot of companies don't know what their EMR worksheet is, their XMR worksheet. And that's definitely my lead indicator. I mean, if I hear someone saying, I've never seen that, I don't know what that is, it's like, bingo. Okay, let me show you. But I definitely always do lead in with the work comp, because here in California, well, actually work comp is very expensive. And it's probably the most, now it's commercial auto, but about 6 years ago, it was workers' comp. And now commercial auto is actually the most expensive line. But workers' comp is a big expense for companies.
Yeah, that's a good. I'm glad. I wanted people to hear you say that, because the people we coach, we tell them, you want to grow your brand awareness, become known for one thing. And I think a lot of people don't leverage their past gifts or skills enough, where, especially somebody like you who came from work comp claim management, why not make that your thing? So it's cool to hear that you did that, because that's now a niche you can easily create thought leadership in because of your past. Now, let's talk about the elephant in the room. You and I had this conversation offline. You're a female producer in the commercial world. You and I were talking about somebody I've been able to work with before, and you follow Madison Baker.
Yes.
She's built a heck of a brand in the commercial insurance space as a female. What was that like going into the production role as a female in the commercial market, which could be considered pretty male dominated? Oh,
it's absolutely male dominant. So when I first started, quite frankly, I was very intimidated. I was very intimidated because I was, 29 years old, and there's these, middle-aged white men who are like, oh, I've been doing this, for 20 years, and I come from Federated, and I'm a Chubb, and I'm Gallagher, and they talk, they're golfing, and it's like, oh my, oh, okay, well, where's the females? Oh, they do manufacture, or they do clothing, they do restaurants. And, when I first started, that's the group I was, surrounded with. And it is it was intimidating, because I'm like, oh man, like these guys know how to talk, because I would hear them talk. They're, smooth talkers. They're great at what they do. So I told myself, okay, everybody has a different skill set, and good for them. They were trained. I wasn't really trained on how to, prospect and sell, or have someone like sit next to me. So I told myself, I'm like, okay, I'm going to have to go in and show them what value I bring in. So my expertise, which is, risk management, claims handling, and I'm going to lean in with building the relationship. So when I go in there, I'm a zero pressure person. I never go like, here's the BOR, because I remember like that's the old school way. They'd be like, you put the BOR in front of them before the meeting starts, and you let them look at it. That's exactly what they told me. And I was like, it depends who the person is, but you just can't put the paper in front of someone without explaining who you are, what you do, or discover their pain points. So I think women, we have intuition. So we definitely are better at communicating and trying to get information out versus a more aggressive type of male.
Yeah, I think of Madison, for example. When she and I first started working together, her biggest thing was imposter syndrome. She said, Andy, I get meetings, but then I get in there and I go, why are they talking to me? And one of the things we worked on with her, and I would share it with you, is I told her, expertise, thought leadership knows no boundaries when it comes to age, gender, race, sex, color, you name it. And if you're willing to put yourself out there, you can overcome any fears of imposter syndrome, because people will view you as a thought leader. And that's really the advice I give people, women in the industry right now in your position, you put yourself out there and every day show you have the knowledge of what it is you do. You're going to overcome any concerns there are about, well, you're a female or you look young or whatever, because at the end of the day, you will be viewed as an expert. I did a workshop about a year and a half ago with a buddy of mine who does video editing. And something he said to the veterans on the webinar, Rocio, I absolutely love. He said, hey guys, here's the deal. All of you think this industry is about tenure and knowledge. But here's what's going to happen. In the next 10 years, we're going to have a bunch of young people come in the industry because they see the revenue, but they're going to understand what it means to build thought leadership through content. And you're going to be sitting back on your laurels that you've been around long enough. You don't need to do any of this. And they're going to start taking your business and you're going to be upset because you think it's all about tenure and knowledge. And it doesn't matter. People are seeing them more than you, and they are now becoming the perceived thought leaders. And I think that's really what you're talking about is you had an expertise as a work comp claims manager. And despite the fact you're female, you're young, you have a ton of value to add when you get in the room. And I said the way I said it to you because I want other women listening in to hear that. Despite the fact you look young, despite the fact you're a woman in a male-dominated industry, you have a lot to add. You have a lot of value to add when you get in that room. So let me ask you this. You took it a step further. Not only are you in a male-dominated industry, you're targeting male-dominated industries. You told me offline one of your niche industries is construction.
Yes.
So what's your advice there if somebody else is listening? How do you overcome those obstacles now that you're targeting a male-dominated industry, not only working for one, but targeting one?
So I am going to lean in on the door with being in the construction space. It is easier to get as a female, the door is easier for it to be open versus a man. I will go on that lean because I think maybe males are just being respectful. They're like, oh, I don't want to be mean, or maybe they'll give you a chance. But I do think that it does give me an advantage being a female in a construction space, but going in with the leading factor, which with contractors, it's time and money. All the, projects are always under budget, have to be on time, and it has to be delivered well. So I think they look for someone that could deliver that same expertise. Now, not every contractor has the same personality, but for primarily speaking, they just want to make sure that they have someone they can lean on when a claim happens, that they're not overpaying, and that you're going to answer the phone call. Because one thing that I get from staffing agencies and contractors is that I have an agent, but he or she never picks up the phone. I email them, I don't get a response, and that's one thing that I think if you're doing that, you definitely pick that skill up, because communicating is a big factor. You have to take care of your client. Customer service.
Yeah, it's at the end of the day, to have success in the insurance industry and in any industry, you got to have the soft skills, right? I think going back to what I said earlier, a lot of people think it's knowledge, product knowledge, industry knowledge. I do construction. I'm the thought leader in construction, oil and gas, you name it. But at the end of the day, it's the soft skills that win or lose business, which is, are you responsive? Mm-hmm. Can you communicate with your client appropriately and make them feel heard and cared for? They could give two craps about your knowledge if you don't pick up the phone when they call, or you make them feel heard. Mm-hmm. And I think that goes back, correct me if I'm wrong, that goes back to, as a female, you tend to be more empathetic, and you probably pick up on those cues better than maybe us males do, right? Is making that client feel appreciated and heard.
Yes.
And here's what I love. This is what I want everybody to hear, Rocio. Whether you're a male or female, if you're a young producer in this industry, for example, and you find yourself in the room with a big prospect, it is so easy to have imposter syndrome set in. But what I want you to remember is, I want you to lean back into what you know best. In your case, Rocio, it's work comp, right? I guarantee no matter what prospect you put yourself in front of, it could be the biggest contractor in Southern California. You know more about work comp than they do. And that's what you have to remember. You know more about what you sell than the person sitting across the table. And you got to lean in with that confidence. So I'm glad you brought that up. What advice, let me ask you this, and we're going to switch it up here in a minute. What advice would you give other women right now who either are in this industry, maybe considering the industry, but also considering a production role, or they already find themselves in a production role that could be struggling with imposter syndrome, maybe finding it difficult to find an industry niche or finding, fitting in? What advice would you give that woman who's struggling?
I think what holds back women, because I've been there, is when you're like, oh man, I don't want to sound like I'm being mean. And it's not like a factor being mean, because there's a difference between being mean and being direct, being assertive, and taking a stand, right? Because I think sometimes, as especially when you're younger in the space, you are like, oh, well, I'm going to have them wait. I don't want to bug them. I don't want to follow up. But follow up is huge in insurance. If you don't follow up, you will miss out on the deal. And I think that sometimes females hold back on that because they just they don't want to come off like they're being too assertive. So I think that is something that I would definitely say, because I definitely did struggle with that in the beginning, especially with following up, because I know when I would follow up, I was like, oh man, I'm gonna bug them. This is like the second time I call them this week. Oh man, or like, I'm busy. Call me back, and I was like, oh, it's not gonna go through. But it's like in my head, right? Because I'm just like, oh, deal's not. But one thing that I've learned is that you are on the time of your prospect. The prospect is not on your time. You are on the time of their prospect. So when they are ready, they will do it. There's no need. You are there to serve them, because as growing producers and trying to get the sell, you're kind of like eager, like, come on, let's do this, let's go. But it's like, no, like, you need to be respectful and mindful that person is running a business. They might be running a team of 50 people. They might be hiring someone new. And that's typically what happens. They're training someone. They might have fired someone. They need more help. And I could definitely vouch on that, because I started my own business, and I'll get different vendors who I am interested in, but just at the moment, it's not the right moment right now, but I am interested.
Yeah, I think you threw out a couple nuggets there that I think are good advice. Number one, when you're selling insurance, they're going to buy on their time, not yours.
Yes.
And so don't pressure them into thinking that they have to buy on your timeline. I don't care if you have a validation date coming up in 3 weeks. Going back though to the imposter syndrome as a female, I worked with a female in the Midwest who also targeted a very male dominated industry, agriculture. And when she got in the position, she was given the advice, literally, that you're one of the only female. So basically try to act like a man is what the advice she was given. And my advice to women is, I think personally, I've coached plenty of them. Some feel they got to step into that type A masculine to compete. But at the end of the day, just be you.
Yeah.
I told this young producer, I said, you're in the ag business. It's easy as a female to try to be anything but a female right now. I want you to do everything you can to just be you, because you're going to be different just doing that.
Yes. And going on that point, I cannot act as a male because I'm not a male. I could think, like, oh, this is what a male's thinking about. Hello, we are from, females are from Venus, males are from Mars. Like, males are very basic and simple, and that's it.
Be careful. I have a lot of male followers. You're going to get me in trouble here.
But females, we have we have a lot of different thoughts, and it's just it's just in our nature. That's
I think the point being made is, I've had the fortunate opportunity to work with a lot of females in my coaching business, and have a few here. I need more on our podcast than I probably have, if I'm willing to admit that. But it's that lean into who you are. Like I said, you don't try to be somebody you're not. Mm-hmm. And to your point, I can't be a man because I'm not a man. Exactly. Yeah. I know that sounds simplistic, but that's the point. Just be you, show up as you, and walk into the meeting as a female, knowing you have the knowledge, and probably more knowledge than the prospect, to help them. And okay, so question for you. Let's have a little fun with this with the few minutes we have left.
Yes.
Let's let some people get to know Rocio outside of the work world. So when you're not working, what do you do? What do you like to do to have fun? Let's talk, share with us what Rocio looks like outside of the insurance industry.
Okay, Rocio loves the insurance industry so much that she never leaves it.
That's all she does is work in the industry. Got it. Okay.
So I do a lot. I do social media. So I think I definitely do enjoy. I do enjoy editing my videos and doing that. But to start off my day, I work out. So that's definitely part of my routine. I've been falling back. I used to be able to work out 6 times a week, but now that I'm busy and getting older, I try to do at least 4 to 5 times a week.
Okay.
But most definitely I wake up at around 3:45 in the morning and I try to get in my workout before 6 a.m.
You said 3:45?
Yes.
Wow. I'm a 4:30 guy and I thought I was early. Dang. Nice.
Yeah. So 3:45. Because I like, getting my head start because also 3:45, it's like, there's not really that many people at the gym.
Okay. So here's what I'd love to know. So if you're getting up at 3:45, you're trying to get your workout in by 6, what are some other activities you do as part of your morning routine?
So my morning routine is very simple. So I get up at 3:45. I try to be at the gym around anywhere 4:10, 4:30. And it has to be before 5 or else like my workouts to cut. But actually, I don't have a morning routine, and I've fallen back on this, but I did used to journal a lot at night. So for me, it's more of like my night routine. I think my night routine helps me get more structured.
Let's talk about that. I'd love to hear that. What are some of what are some of the keys to your night routine that get you ready for a productive next day or an opportunity to wind down from the current day? Yes.
So I've been guilty of this where, you kind of just work until your brain is no longer able to work and you roll over to bed. I'm guilty of that. And I'm actually trying to fall back more. But I know when I have a good productive day is when I'm able to shut down the computer around 7:30. And then I organize all my emails and I make a list of what I need to do for the next day. And I pack my gym clothes right next door. Like I put everything all ready so I could just grab it, go. And then I do like my facial. So I do that. I guess maybe that's where I find my peace. Because I know if I do a good, face mask or do something that took time, I just feel like I'm like, okay, I'm in peace in doing this.
I like and that. If I have a little bit more time, for some it's meditation. For you, it's a face mask.
Yeah.
Okay. Perfect.
Yeah. And then if I have some time, I will go outside and walk my English bulldog. So because of the heat right now, it's summer. It's pretty hot over here in California. It's like 99 degrees. English bulldogs can't be walked during the day. So I'll take my time to walk them in the night.
Awesome. So if you journal, spend some time and just relaxing with the face mask, get your stuff ready for the next day, including setting your clothes aside, take the bulldog. What's your bulldog's name?
Spoinky.
Spoinky. Take him out for a walk. You're ready for a productive night of sleep and a great next day. I love hearing that because I think...
Yes. And you know what else helps me out is eating. So my eating habits they have drastically changed and for the better.
Oh, talk to me about this. I love eating habits. Let's go. Oh my
goodness. Okay. So I'm a 80-20 person. So like, 80% just eating regular food. And then have, if I want to eat some chips or have something on the side, I'm not going to be like, oh no, that's carbs. No, I enjoy it. But the reason that I stick to whole foods and natural foods for inflammation, I could probably show you my I've never been, right now, I just feel so much better than I felt when I was at the claims desk. At the claims desk, I used to have a bunch of snacks and I used to have like chocolates and, just things to get me up for the 3 p.m. kicker. But man, that led to some gain weight because I was always been like a smaller frame, but most definitely like mentally, like that mental fog, I had that. And now that I'm changed my eating habits into, eating whole foods and sticking to a routine, oh my God, it's so much easier. Just grab protein, grab some potatoes, have some veggies and fruit, and that's kind of just what I stick to, just very basic.
I love that. I think the best routines are the simple routines.
Mm-hmm.
People will ask me sometimes for diet advice, and I say I keep it pretty simple. We eat whole foods, a lot of protein, at least try to get a gram per body weight of protein in every day. Keep the carbs and the calories low, and I don't try to eat after 7 p.m.
Same.
I try to eat, and I try not to eat breakfast for a good 2 to 3 hours after I wake up. So like simple tips like that, I think go a long way, because we're in an industry. Quite frankly, you go to a conference in our industry, guess what it is? It's late night steak dinners with a lot of alcohol. You sleep like crap, you get up and you play like crap the next day. Rinse and repeat. And too many people are doing that. So I love that you have that routine. I love talking about this stuff. So I got a couple questions for you, rapid fire here with this.
Okay.
What's your perfect workout? If you had one workout, your go-to workout, what is it?
Okay, so perfect go-to workout would probably be like a full body workout. Anywhere where I'm able to hit. So I like weights. Okay. I definitely would be able anywhere where I'm able to hit weights, and maybe add like a 10-minute Stairmaster, like maybe just depending how much I do. But I stick to like the bro on the bro schedule. So I do like legs one day and then do arms the other day, just to keep it simple, because I don't 100%. Like overworking the muscles.
I love that. What about, are you reading any books right now? Any books you recommend?
Yes. So I'm actually I'm listening to the Audible. It's called Business Secrets from the Bible. So I've been getting, I heard a really good review on it on YouTube, and I like listening to everybody's viewpoints. But I think everything leads to you being a better person. And 100%. I was like very intrigued by this. So I was like, oh, okay, the Bible, and what does the Bible have to say about business? Because I'm honestly like, I wasn't raised religious, or wasn't born in the religious space, and I turned Christian about a year ago. So all this Bible thing it's new to me. So that's why I opened this up. But yeah.
That's really cool. No, I'm glad you shared that. Thank you. With my podcast, I'm a big believer, if you feel good, you play good. If you play good, you get paid good. That's kind of stealing a phrase from Deion Sanders, and the former NFL football player. And that people, I think, in our industry don't spend enough time taking care of themselves off the field, so they play well on it. So I love to hear people's routines, and we often have, most people we have on the podcast are very driven people. So I really love to hear that. Last question for you before we wrap up. If our audience is a range of people, from the producer who's been in the industry for 6 months to a 40-year veteran. For that producer, either new to the industry who may be dealing with that imposter syndrome, or even a veteran who's just trying to get it going again and they feel stuck, what advice would you give them right now to have more joy or more fun in their career?
I would say step back and see where is it that you are, where you feel that you're dragging your feet. Are you dragging your feet to prospect? That's typically where people happen, right? You kind of like do a lot of client servicing, a lot of customer service, a lot of emails, and the next thing you know, it's 2 p.m. You haven't made a phone call. I'm saying that because that's me. I'll get
talking to yourself there.
Yeah, I'm talking to myself right here. So if you step back and look where you are, and then if it's not that, is it you keeping the client? Is it you in your team? Because maybe there's some frustrations with the team, like, oh, my team didn't go out and market, or what it is. So I would definitely say take a step back, and what better way to get help than having a third person from the outer view look at it, like someone like you. Like someone like you to analyze, like, okay, I see where the mistake is, because sometimes as people, we're just stuck in our head. So we think we have a whole idea of what's going on, but in reality, that's not the issue. There's something else that we just are, either we don't want to see it, or we're just so focused on that one specific little problem, and we're making it a big deal about it when that is not the problem, and it's something else.
Yeah, well said. I think, seeking out a mentor or a coach when you feel stuck or need to get going is important, because to your point, it's hard to read the label when you're inside the bottle, and you need somebody who can take a look from the outside and go, here's what's going on. Here's what you need to do to change that. That's well said. Seek mentorship, seek coaches, it'll elevate your career in many ways. Rocio, this was great. Thank you for your time. If somebody wanted to reach out and connect, what are the best ways to do that?
Yes. So you can reach out to me on LinkedIn, Rocio Luna. And I'm also on Instagram, which is Rocio _INS, the word INS _services. And then on my LinkedIn, I have a link to my website, which kind of attaches all my social media, but I'm primarily just on LinkedIn and Instagram.
Perfect. Well, this has been an honor. This has been awesome. Thank you for your time. I hope for everybody listening in, especially if you came from the world Rocio did, where you're a claims manager, former adjuster, account manager, you weren't in a production role and you find yourself in one today. I think she dropped some great advice for you. Leverage your tactical abilities and your skill set from where you came to create a nice differentiator and a nice niche. Thank you, Rocio. Everybody else, be good. Have a good weekend.
Thank you, Andy.
That's all we got for today's episode of the Bullpen Sessions podcast. One thing that would really help us both and other new potential listeners is for you to rate this show and leave a comment in iTunes, Stitcher, or wherever you tune in to listen to the show. Also, make sure to link up with us at CompleteGameConsulting.com on social media. And please share this podcast with anyone who you think might enjoy it. Until next time, remember, clarity creates confidence. Confidence creates consistency. Consistency makes you unstoppable.